Last week I went over Circus Baby's grand return to form and Hope Wanted 2, where she embraced her roots and became an eerily threatening but somewhat endearing character, more resembling her initial portrayal in Sister Location than she has in years. But there was something I skipped over in that video, and it was because I realized it was going to be one heck of a topic to try to cover in a video about another topic entirely, one featuring Circus Baby and at least 4 to 6 other people, 7 if you include Afton, 8 if there's anyone else I miss or bring up later. Today we're talking about the bizarre connections between Circus Baby, the daycare attendant, the Mimic, Glitchtrap, Vanessa, Vanny, and Eleanor. Or more simply, the complicated nature of Fnaf's lore hints. When is a connection not a connection? When is a hint not a hint? When is a single voice line enough to start a chain reaction of connections pinning a group of characters to one? Well, now, really, with one line. What makes you so special? A line spoken by a slew of characters and originating from the books, one that might mean nothing at all or maybe hinting to something greater. That's one of the things we'll be covering today, and again what inspired this video, but that is not what this video is about. It's about the lore. Five Nights at Freddy's story has been rather overly complicated for a while now. In recent times there has been a lack of concrete information while the addition of more and more plot threads have been weaved in. I've heard some folks argue that Fnaf is actually a rather simple story if you just watch the games and read the books and wiki, and try to focus on the surface and not bring in the extra details. And up until recently, I might have partially agreed on that. To an extent. There's definitely a lot of plot elements that can be understood by just not theory diving and just like looking at the source material. Trying to fit every detail into one story is just a recipe for frustration. But Fnaf's lore has always been built upon subtle hints, and this is the point where their subtle hints are starting to tangle up. This video is going to show that, no, Fnaf's story is definitely overcomplicated, and the nature of the storytelling, through hints and mysteries and coming up with your own answers, is actually tripping itself, at least in this case. Allow me to untangle this web of cogs and oil. A brief note here, but there's no aha moment to be had. Most of the time I'm able to pull together a conclusion, and I do have one here, but it's not as clean as it seems. Indeed, I don't classify this as a theory video. I classify this as a where the heck do I go kind of video. Also, there's going to be someone in the comments who will say, you don't know what you're talking about. Everything I'm about to tell you is stuff from the games and the books. I'm not pulling this out of thin air. I do know what I'm talking about. My speculation is opinionated, but my sources are clean. So let's make this as messy as possible. So, who do we start with? Well, there's not really much to cover on Circus Baby herself, but in case you haven't seen my other video, here's a very, very brief description of Circus Baby for groundwork purposes. Circus Baby was an animatronic possessed by Elizabeth Afton, the daughter of William Afton, who was the purple guy who killed everyone and who always comes back. In Sister Location, she manipulates Michael Afton, who she thinks is her father, to scoopify his body and wear it like a suit and escape her complex. She later comes to a fake pizzeria and burns in a giant fire. If you need any more information on Circus Baby, I recommend watching last week's video because I go through her whole story a lot more clearly there. Circus Baby is very important to the story today because she is the root character who all these other connections surround. It's also necessary for me to bring up Circus Baby as depicted in the Silver Eyes trilogy novels, as remarkably she too is an important part of this puzzle. In the fourth closet, Circus Baby is actually a robotic duplicate of Charlie Emily, the daughter of Henry Emily, William's former business partner. William murdered Charlie and Henry rebuilt a series of robot bodies to bring her back, but by the time he got to her adult form, he became disillusioned to the point where his anger and hatred infected her and fueled her. She was then confiscated by William, where she was sort of fitted into the Circus Baby role, then taken back by Henry, and then taken back by William, upon which she became his femme fatale underling. This seems like an aside, but this does become important later, in multiple different ways. Let's move on to the first subject of the web, Eleanor. I choose Eleanor because she has less importance than everyone else, so I'm just going to get her out of the way first. Eleanor is the primary antagonist of the Fazbear Frights book series, sort of. She kind of isn't, and is then thrust into the role when Afton, who returns as a giant trash rabbit of mangled animatronics, is suddenly yeeted out of the story. After that point, she becomes the main villain of the epilogues. Eleanor's gimmick is that she has a pendant made of remnant that somehow allows her to Sailor Moon shapeshift into other people and animatronics freely with the power of hate, or agony. Basically, agony is just like haunted material. Eleanor sees someone and she can suddenly become them in an illusion that's so perfect that she is half of the animatronics in the book series, and there's no indication of that until it's revealed as a twist in the finale. Eleanor greatly resembles Circus Baby, though is slender and lanky. She has the pigtails at least, and the red dress. In illustrations, in the description in the book, her dress is not named a certain color. But let's get this clear. Eleanor looks like Baby. She might use the illusion disc powers that Book Baby uses in the Silver Eyes trilogy, well, to an extent. But she is not Baby. She is some sort of agony demon of unknown origin. She's not Circus Baby or Elizabeth Afton. She's not even Renelle Talbert, a girl of which she steals the name of to trick a major character, and yes, this girl's name sounds legitimately fake. It is literally Eleanor backwards, and yet somehow she is not her, nor is she related to her. Upon the next series of books, Eleanor was replaced by the Mimic, an animatronic who is capable of contorting his body into any shape to fill any suit, act like an animatronic or person, and mimic them exactly. A gimmick very similar to Eleanor's, just without the direct shape-shifting. Well, other than, the body morphing. We'll get back to Mimic later, but Mimic seems to be like a direct follow-up to Eleanor. Like, one could believe that Eleanor was supposed to continue on into the next book, and was switched out for Mimic for some reason. But, did you know that Eleanor, or Book Baby, maybe, was teased in Fury's Rage, the Security Breach spin-off before the game came out? She's visible in a tank hidden in one of the last levels. Could this just be a reference? Maybe, but why? The Tales from the Pizzaplex books were already scheduled to come out. Fazbear Frights was not important to the Pizzaplex. Well, here's a sort of crazy theory that isn't said anywhere. Due to her and Mimic's mimicking and shapeshifting gimmicks being so similar, in different ways but similar, the teaser, and the fact that, Vanny's voice actress has never been the same as Vanessa's, and there was a huge amount of plot cut, I wonder if it's possible Eleanor was cut from Security Breach, or that there was an Eleanor-like character cut, maybe like pre-Mimic. You might be thinking I'm pulling this out of nowhere, but there's one piece of evidence that directly backs up Security Breach with Fazbear Frights' epilogues. So remember when I mentioned that Eleanor took over from Afton, and how Afton's final form was a giant trash pile rabbit made of animatronic parts? This trash trap is in the Princess Quest game, the first one revealed in Help Wanted. He was teased for Security Breach even before Security Breach came out, and yes, before you ask, this wasn't just a book teaser. The Princess Quest games have been irreparably tied to Vanny's character. If you look at the creature, which says Afton's tagline, "I always come back," it is a rabbit made out of parts and pieces of numerous animatronics. That is exactly how it is described in the book. Also recall that in the initial trailer, our encounter with Burntrap wasn't in a recharge station. It was him crawling along a floor. Though, was it even him? So much was cut, we can't even tell anymore. For example, did you know Vanessa had about 20 jumping and landing voice lines? Yeah, that says something. The point is, there were 2 pre-Security Breach side games that teased a connection with these books, but this is small potatoes compared to where we're about to get into. Let's move on to the Mimic. The Mimic is the primary antagonist in the Tales of the Pizzaplex books, and is now officially in the games as of Ruin, where he is revealed to have been sitting under the Pizzaplex for a long time. He is believed to be Burntrap, but they look a little different, and this is not confirmed. He is believed to be Glitchtrap, but there's a huge plot hole here that I'll tackle when I hit Glitchtrap. Depending on the story, Mimic either compulsively mimics whatever he sees, or just decided one day to mimic Afton for no particular reason. In the games, in Ruin, it seems to be the former, as he has started to mimic Gregory. This is not just as a lore either, as him and Gregory have encountered one another before, or this is alluded to by both Gregory and Candy Cadet. meaning he saw him and began to replicate. The Mimic shares many of Eleanor's behaviors. Though he is supposed to primarily mimic, he is bloodthirsty and devious, and extremely manipulative, and has a backstory that is virtually identical to Fourth Closet Baby's. No, I am not kidding. A father who was involved with the earliest restaurant of Freddy's, one of the creators and the other a suit maker, loses a child in a tragic incident, no wife in the picture, and takes their anger out on their robotic duplicate, which fills it with rage. They then disappear for a good 30 years before returning to try to make things right. Some things are out of order, and it's sort of a half-book, half-game Henry, but these repeated plot lines are noticeable considering that there's other references to the Silver Eyes trilogy, like big, noticeable ones. You would think because the Silver Eyes trilogy was from a long time ago, it took place in a different era, it wouldn't be important now. Except yeah, suddenly it is. Like, Ruin has the underground pizzaplex from the Twisted Ones, plus the glowing mushroom-filled cave with a waterfall that was described in the book. It is an exact homage. More importantly, we finally get back to that line that I mentioned earlier. What makes you so special? This line, spoken by Circus Baby, Moon, and Mystic Hippo, is spoken initially by Book Baby herself. Even more complicated, but two of these characters, maybe even Baby herself, are likely controlled by Vanny. But I won't go off onto that yet without fully tackling Vanny, so let's first go on to the bunny behind Vanny and Mimic, Glitchtrap. Many people believe that Glitchtrap and Mimic are the same person, but there's a few things that suggest they aren't, and there's a few things that hint maybe they are, and nothing concretely leaning either way. But the most blatant piece of evidence that Glitchtrap and Mimic aren't the same character is a line in Ruin in which Grimmick, who is Mimic pretending to be Gregory, and Helptrap, the yellow-dyed Helpy, the possessed Helpy, share a line against each other. Helptrap says that he has finally gotten rid of the entity, and Gregory says,
"Yeah, with my help, I updated Helpy with a signal jammer. That rabbit thing won't bother you anymore."
And before you say Mimic's doing both voices and is trying to trick Cassie, why? She's already totally believing that this is Gregory. It doesn't make any sense that this random, sudden line would pop up. Either they're separate people and this was an oopsie, or this was a writing oopsie. But maybe you look to the books. The books. In the books, Mimic says that he learned how to do his thing, copy Afton, from a game of hide and seek. Instead of being connected to the Pizzaplex story hide and seek from the first book, this is tied into Glitchtrap in the Pizza Party level in Help Wanted, and is often used as an example of where Mimic learned this from. But wait a minute. If Mimic learned from this, then that means he learned from Glitchtrap. If he went off of the information of the murders from in the game, there's not much. Afton is shown as Springtrap. Why would he concoct this new persona and know exactly how Afton lured children? Why would he be so dead on? Better still, Pizza Party is depicted not as an actual established level in the game, but instead a corruption by Glitchtrap. After all, it is literally made of the reused parts from the game, and results in him, the anomaly, sneaking in. So if Mimic learned from Glitchtrap, then Glitchtrap existed before Mimic. Well, I've got an answer to that. See, there's been speculation that this is because Glitchtrap is the Mimic 1 program. So, you're telling me that Mimic learned from Mimic, who just happened to know. And wait, it gets more convoluted because the virus that is Glitchtrap came off of old hardware. Hardware that was provided by Fazbear Entertainment and likely came out of the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place, the Fnaf 6 location, which the Pizzaplex was built directly on top of. So that would mean that Mimic didn't learn from the game of hide and seek. He was just hanging out around another game of hide and seek, saw this, sat around, got salvaged but still had a functional body since Mimic is noted to be old, did Help Wanted, possessed Vanny, and then appeared again from the depths of the Pizzaplex later. Also, the biggest evidence to all this, at the end of Help Wanted 2, Vanny smushes Glitchtrap into dust. His remains are smeared on the wall of the office in Ruin. But Mimic still remains. In fact, Mimic is not mimicking Afton anymore. He's mimicking Gregory. So that would imply that Mimic is mimicking Glitchtrap, and stops, instead of the commonly held belief that Glitchtrap is killed and gets trapped back into his Mimic body. But emphasis on the word believed, or commonly believed, because a lot of what I just went over is just that. Theories. What's actually there? Well, this line that could be a slip-up or a trick. These atomic bomb remains. That thing, and nothing concrete. I feel like Milhouse in that episode of The Simpsons where he's talking about how Bart tried convincing him that he didn't have a fish. But why did I have the bowl, Bart? Why did I have the bowl? I'm holding the bowl, I'm just not sure what's in it. Also, a brief tangent on Glamrock Bonnie. Let's start with the fact that Glamrock Bonnie is possessing all of the wet floor bots. His eyes are glowing yellow like Helpies, but yeah, he's possessing all of the wet floor bots, because when you shut them down, he finally shuts down. Why does Glamrock Bonnie take the same shielding himself pose as Glitchtrap? Is there a connection here? Why is Glamrock Bonnie posing like this at all? One last note on Glamrock Bonnie. Folks believe that despite some rather incriminating evidence against Monty, that Vanny was the mastermind behind breaking Glamrock Bonnie. I mean, she could have still been behind it through Monty, but the reason why she would have done it would have had to have been to use his security office, which she does, as that's the office that she set up in Security Breach. But the belief is that it was to build Burn Trap with. But alas, Bonnie's parts are in fact not reused to make into Burn Trap. Also, Glamrock Bonnie's splitting bowling pins down the middle cut Fnaf AR line where Vanessa's looking up cutting people in half. Coincidence? I think maybe. And so that we can connect this back to Baby, let's step into Vanny and Vanessa now. Vanessa was possessed by Glitchtrap, during which she took on the identity of Vanny. Maybe. Like, Vanessa and Vanny are kinda obviously the same person, but the series is purposefully vague for some reason. Like putting them on the same page of the character encyclopedia, but then saying they seem to be the same person. All I know is the possessed person was named Ness, and that she worked in IT and was moved to security, which, coincidentally, so was Vanessa. But Vanessa's role in the case of Baby is much more concise. Vanessa is Baby's replacement in every sense of the word. Remember Baby's tragic backstory with her daddy? And by Pizzeria Simulator wanting to make daddy proud and all that stuff. Well, Vanessa too has a tragic daddy backstory where he convinced her to do something that I think is alluded to testifying against her mother. It's never said directly, but this is a vibe I got. Something that she in the therapy tapes is said to express guilt over. By the way, Daddy's name is Bill, which is a nickname for William. If it's not any more direct, spoilers for the movie, Vanessa, who is pretty much the same character but a cop and back in the 90s, is Afton's daughter. That is about as direct as you can get. I'll get back to this. She also resembles Elizabeth Afton with blonde hair and green eyes. And before you say Elizabeth was a redhead, she was kind of a strawberry blonde, but she's also been portrayed as a blonde, such as in the graphic novel. Speaking of the novels, as you may know, Circus Baby was turned into a tightly dressed bombshell working under Afton, and Vanny's skin suit couldn't get any tighter, and her poses couldn't get any coyer if she was Bugs Bunny in drag. But that means that, yeah, Vanessa is not only taking over Elizabeth Afton's role, but the role as the reluctant lackey, the femme fatale, the Harley Quinn, the walking daddy issues, book Baby entirely. In short, everything Baby became was passed on to Vanessa, except, notably, the stuff that was originally penned to Baby, such as her perchance for manipulation as depicted in Sister Location. As in the emails, tapes, movie, hints, it's repeatedly suggested that Vanessa is really a good girl who doesn't want to do all this bad stuff. And in that vein, she sort of covers the role of Michael Afton, too. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing as long as the story kind of figures out what it wants to do with her, because we're still in a transitional back and forth phase. And it doesn't help that as of Help Wanted 2, we're still having most of Vanny's lines cut, and even swapping assets to Glitchtrap, such as the arms holding out the dolls, who were initially supposed to be Vanny's, and were then turned into Glitchtraps. Why? And now, Vanny apparently destroyed Glitchtrap, but still seems to somewhat exist. Ruin suggests that she doesn't, maybe, but then again, Ruin suggests that Vanessa built an AR security system, she was an AR and VR tech before moving to security, and named it Vanny, after her possessed self, and made an entity that seems a little too similar to her captor. Daddy issues aren't Vanessa's only issues, apparently. The long and short of it is, Vanessa needs to be watched. Who knows when she's going to squeeze herself into a red dress. This would be devastating because with her eyes and hair, She would definitely look better in green. Or blue. Blue would look good. Even purple, but not red. In fact, forget the dress. Dress her up like Vanny was decked out in Fury's Rage. I want to see 80s glam punk bunny. What am I going on about? I don't know. We're not done with Vanny, but this last piece of her puzzle involves the "what makes you so special" line. Yes, we're back to that again. Remember how I said it is spoken by two characters directly underneath her? Well, that needs a little explanation. So Mystic Hippo is a quick case. Something is speaking through her to give hints on how to find the secret dolls needed to get to the Princess Quest machine and help Vanny. And considering Vanny's cut lines and her initially holding out the dolls, data mine showed that it was supposed to be her, I can say with barely any sureness that this person puppeteering Mystic Hippo likely was Vanny. Moon is more complicated. As teased in Security Breach and downright confirmed in Help Wanted 2, the daycare attendant was under Vanny's control. In fact, considering their important role in the game, but entirely cut in presence, like Vanny's, I would go on to say that I'm mildly confident that he had a bigger role that was carved out. Beckoning around corner animations that match glitch traps, a hallway maze filled with Moon merch, and a spontaneously appearing Freddy upgrade hint at a cut section or boss battle. The Balloon World minigame shows the purple infecting the sun and moon. The Balloon World minigame only located in the daycare attendant's room and in Vanny's underground room. Vanny sleeps on a moon blanket. In the prize game, he is shown to be Vanny's claw for retrieving thing. I don't think it gets more literal than that one. And the fact that the sun and moon situation so closely resembles Vanessa and Vanny. I'm probably missing something, but this is the lot for now. And yes, Moon also has that "what makes you so special" line. So, is that Moon himself? Or Vanny controlling him, saying it through him? But that's not the end of Moon's connections to Baby. Not only does he and her share plush counterparts, the plush babies and the plush Moons, who ended up being cut, but they're also, well, they're both clowns. Okay, that doesn't really matter, but the plush thing is kinda noticeable. Especially since the plush babies are still returning long after Baby's demise. And her use of them in the job interview level, even though there weren't any plush babies during Sister Location, which is the game in which these levels were based off of. Sun is portrayed in Help Wanted 2 as putting on an act most of the time, which sounds similar to Baby's ability to, and perchance, to pretend. Sunny pretends to be bubbly and fun when he's really stressed out and wrung tight, while Baby pretends to be kind and soft when she's actually bitter and vindictive. Moon and Baby have some similar traits in their baby talk veiling threat, but that actually could be a coincidence because other characters occasionally also do that. I think that has Moon covered enough, so if you'll allow me to lay this all out in the open. So, we have William Afton's daughter, the reluctant clown and also femme fatale, passing off her role to the reluctant clown Moon and the femme fatale who is also William's daughter of various regards, Vanny and or Vanessa, both of which may be separate or the same people. We've got two guys mimicking Afton who may or may not also be the same people, one of which exists in a paradox of where he inspired himself to become a killer, and the other has Book Baby's backstory and the gimmicks of two completely different Fnaf villains. Baby and Moon are spouting book lines, Vanny might too, and we've got Eleanor, the other mimic, who was teased in Fury's Rage, who took over being the villain in the books from Afton, who was a giant amalgam, who was also teased in Princess Quest. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why Five Nights at Freddy's lore feels like a fever dream. Welcome to Fazbear Hell, population 666, and they're all spawn of Afton. Okay, but realistically, what we just went through is a messy tangle of hints and suggestions that have all been picked up by the community to explain the lore. But when we lay them all out front to back, they really do feel kind of jarring, don't they? And at the core, there is Baby. Baby, who is linked to Eleanor because they share a design, and the book link with the illusion discs. Mimic because he has Book Baby's backstory, and, well, his face kind of resembles her endo face too. Moon because they share the book line, certain little tidbits, and are both subservient clownish folks. Vanny and Vanessa as Vanessa in both Vanny garb and not is a replacement of Baby, and Glitchtrap, the Afton stand-in who links Mimic, Vanny, and some other stuff. Circus Baby is not in the story, and yet these connections make it look like she is. But is she? Do these connections mean something? Well, to be frank, I don't know and I don't care to know. See, there could be an elaborate plot going on here, but if you'll allow me to be pragmatic, I'd like to mention a point I made in the Baby video that I think cements itself here. Vanessa, Moon, Mimic, these connections may look like links, but what if in actuality, these characters are just taking over the roles that Baby was slotted into? Baby herself was sort of yanked around and turned into whatever the plot needed. So now these different elements, suffering daughter femme fatale, tragic duplicate stuck pretending, clown, they've all been passed on to new characters now that she's gone, with limited ranges of success. But success nonetheless. Cutting out all the fat, that's what I think these connections really are. Overlooking the story reasons, I think once Circus Baby took her final bow, it opened the doorway for other characters to use the many roles she had been fit into. Or that's the way I choose to look at whatever I've been talking about for the last, hour? Point is, a bunch of characters have connections to Baby, but less in the vein of being Baby, even with the hints that might be the case, and instead seemingly filling the various roles that Circus Baby had or was put into or lost. That being said, I wouldn't be shocked if some surprising story element suddenly swooped in, connecting Baby back into the current plot. Like if Vanessa was a robotic clone of Elizabeth made by William Afton back around Sister Location days, a la the Silver Eyes trilogy. Actually, that would kinda explain some things. Or if Sun and Moon were revealed to be built from Baby's code, or Mimic is straight up just revealed to be Circus Baby, or something along those lines. In the world of Five Nights at Freddy's, stuff's gonna happen, but you're going to need 9 books, 3 games, and a couple of hour-long lore videos to figure out what the heck it was. Thank you for watching.